start recording? Okay, so today, Wednesday, March 22nd, you need to download automateye.xlsm. Today is a long-awaited day. Being able to log in to a password-protected website automatically, hold data down, maybe put information in for, maybe you're filling it, trying to find out, what is it going to cost to go to lots of different places on airlines. So you go to southwest.com and you put a bunch of itineraries, search, read the itineraries back, and build a table with all that data. And so that's what we're after today. I have to say, folks, we don't, typically, when I'm looking for a quote, I'm looking for a founding father. Well, I got another quote for you. You're going to help me with this. Peter Parker. Oh, hold on a second. You're on to it. Turns out I was reading a newspaper from July 17th, 1776, and it talks about Peter Parker. He's not Spider-Man, he's the captain of a ship, but he's Sir Peter Parker. Yeah, what's his uncle's name? Henry? Owen? Ben? Uncle Ben. Owen. Wait. Is it really Uncle Ben? With the rice? What does Uncle Ben tell Peter, kind of not long before he dies? Now whoever said it, give me the quote.
Much is given, much is expected.
No, that's from the Doctrine and Covenants.
It's like great power comes
with great power comes great responsibility. Today, I'm going to give you great power. I'm going to make it easier for you to break the law today than anything else I have done for you. It turns out there's an idea, a legal doctrine called trespass to chattel. Let's take just a moment and talk about trespass to chattel. What's trespass to chattel? Anyone know what trespass is? Does anyone know what a chattel is in legal terms? A chattel is movable, ownable property. A computer is a chattel. The little bag from the computer is a chattel. Your notebook is a chattel. The mouse is a chattel. Cattle are chattel. If you can move it and own it, it's a chattel. Typically, when you talk about trespass, you're talking about trespass to real property. Dirt. You're not going to move. You can't move your property, right? Could you dig up all your dirt, take it somewhere else, plop it there, and say, "This is still my dirt. I own it, and this is now my property"? No, because it's a different kind of property. And so you understand trespass to real property, but I want to talk about trespass to chattel. Trespass on someone's chattel requires two things. Number one, you have to touch the chattel. It doesn't matter how long I look at that mouse. I can't trespass it. So I have to touch it. It has to be contact. And number two, the person who owns the chattel has to be dispossessed of the chattel because of the contact. Meaning that if I was to do this to that mouse, have I trespassed on the chattel? Yes. Can she use that mouse while I'm holding it? You can't sit there. While I'm holding it in place? No. She's dispossessed of that. You could sue me for trespass to chattel. What would I be liable for? If the court found, you really trespassed on her chattel. What's the liability? Do you guys take business law anymore? You didn't talk about trespass to chattel, but it's a tort. This is a tort law now. I did something wrong. I did bad. I committed a tort. What am I responsible for under tort law? Damages. What's the damage? What was the value of her not being able to use her mouse while I was trespassing on it? What is it? Half a cent? Maybe? It depends on what she was trying to do, maybe, but yeah, so you have to realize it's the same kind of thing. It's trespassing. What's the liability? It's the damages. What damages are talking about? Okay. So, roll the clock back to the 1990s. Two companies. One called Bidder's Edge and one called eBay. Have you heard of these companies? You've heard of one of them. You know how this lawsuit ends. There's this company called Bidder's Edge. And their idea was, you come to Bidder's Edge and we'll show you everything that's on eBay. We'll show you everything that's at UBid. We'll show you everything that's at every other auction site that exists now or might pop up in the near future. And then follow the link and go bid. You bid at eBay, but you can see what's available here. Pretty good idea. For a place like Bidder's Edge, they'd probably use it. What does eBay think about this idea?
Don't like it.
They don't like this idea. Why? On the one hand, it'd be nice. They're getting referrals to eBay. This another company sending traffic to us. But why doesn't eBay like this?
It's cheaper at another site.
Yeah, they want to be the online auction house. They want to dominate the market. so that they can control listing fees. Right? We want to make it very difficult for you to go anywhere else. And if there's a place like UBid that says, hey, go to UBid and you get everything there, then all of a sudden eBay jacks up their prices. They say, well, yeah, I might get more people come into eBay, but enough people are using Bidder's Edge now that I'll go somewhere else and I'll end up with a better bottom line. So eBay goes, yeah, we got to stop this. How is Bidder's Edge getting the information about what's being listed at eBay? They're doing what I'm going to teach you today. They're not using Excel, but they're doing the same technology. They're writing a program that goes to eBay and just looks across all of their listings and makes a copy of their listings. So what eBay does is they say, all right, wow, we've got all these hundreds of thousands of requests coming from this IP address, this range of IP addresses. We're just going to quit responding to those. What does Bidder's Edge do? They start using different IP addresses. And there's this kind of technological battle going back and forth, and eBay finally goes, you know, all this technology stuff, it's a hassle. We're just going to sue them. Cut it out, we're suing you. They allege three things. Number one, you're a violation of our copyright. Number two, you're a violation of our contract, our terms of use contract. And not to mention that, you're trespassing on our servers. It goes to the Ninth Circuit Court in California. What's the one in San Francisco? I think it's the Ninth. And it goes before Judge White. And Judge White looks at this and he goes, yeah. You're not violating copyright. There's no copyright here. These are facts, eBay, and you can't copyright facts. So it dismisses that claim. Breach of contract, sorry, there's no, again, back to your business law class, there's no manifest assent. No reason for us to actually believe that they even knew what the contract was, so there's not a breach of contract. Other states, it might have been a breach of contract. State of Washington, state of Virginia, it might have been a breach of contract, but in California, not a breach of contract. But he looks at this one, trespass to chattel, and he goes, trespass to chattel takes two things, contact and dispossession. Is there contact? What's the chattel in this case? It's the server. You've got a server somewhere. And Judge White scratches his chin for a while, and he says, you had to bounce either an electron or a photon along a wire, and ultimately, that had to bounce into the network card on that server. That might constitute contact. I'm not sure. That might be contact. And he said, dispossession? Probably not, but if it was all added up, not just you guys, but everyone, could be enough volume that you're dispossessed of that server. I mean, there's cycles. It takes power to, I can't do other things while I'm servicing those requests. Maybe the requirement for dispossession is met as well. And so he said, look, there are real legal questions here. We're going to figure them out. And we're going to figure them out and try. So issues an injunction against Bidder's Edge that says you got to quit until we figure this out. We're not sure. You got to figure this out. What happened to Bidder's Edge? They blew up and they dried up and blew away. They settled with eBay out of court. The terms of the settlement are unknown, they're sealed, but there's no question who wins. eBay wins this deal. But that idea of trespass to chattel, and it was this preliminary ruling that has since become the legal precedent. There have since been other rulings that go, oh yeah, you know what? Judge White was on the right track there. We're going to go with it. And so if you do what I'm teaching you to do today, in a way that contravenes the wishes of the site owner, you are trespassing on their chattel. What are you liable for? Damages. What's the damage? The damage is minuscule. So the liability you're creating for yourself is tiny. But because you're trespassing, they could then go and get an injunction against you. A court order that says, cut it out. You violate that, you're in trouble. You see what I'm saying? And so, what I'm about to tell you, what I'm about to teach you today, realize what you're doing that might be illegal. And if so, you could get a letter that says, hey, cut this out. In which case you'll be in trouble. Is someone going to sue you for the 17 cents? You hit them 10,000 times. It really is probably something like 17 cents. It's not much. Are they going to sue you over the 17 cents? No. But that's the environment that we're in. So here's the question. How can you tell if your contact is unwanted? Oh, by the way, there's one more idea here, and that is Yeah, eBay, but you connected your server up to a public network. You have invited the contact. You invited the contact. If she had asked me to contact her chattel, it wouldn't have been trespass to chattel, right? If I've been invited to do it, it's not trespass. And so the idea is you connected your server to a public network. You are inviting contact. And so the third thing is you have to revoke the contact. Here's how you revoke the contact. Let's go to walmart.com. walmart.com/robots.txt. Robots.txt is a machine-readable file, so it follows a standard, where the owner of the site says, this is what you're allowed to do automatically and what you're not allowed to do automatically. And that's what you're about to do. You are about to automatically interact with the web server. You are going to write a robot, you're writing what's called a bot or a robot. And this is the file that tells you what you're allowed to do. So this is what it says. If we look at this page, it says user agent all. There might be some specific ones later. Yeah, there's some other user agents here. There's a user agent called Media Partners-Google, and there's specific rules for that one. But for everyone else, it says, listen, if it starts with /account, if it's walmart.com/account, don't go there. .checkout/checkout, all these places, don't go there. It says, oh, by the way, specifically, we're disallowing reviews except for /reviews/product. That's okay. You see this, how this works? And so you would have to look at where you're going and ask yourself, is it disallowed by the robots.txt file? If it's not, they've invited the contact by being connected to a public network. They haven't revoked the invitation. Crawl away. If it is, and you decide to go there anyway, you're trespassing. So just don't go crazy. If you're like Leader's Edge and you're making hundreds of thousands of requests a day, someone's going to notice. But the trouble is, it's a very broad brush. The law is painted with a very broad brush in this context. What if you're only making 1,000 hits a day? Is that trespass? The truth of the matter is, the person on the back end running the server probably couldn't care less. 1,000 hits a day is so far below anything they're worried about, they're like, whatever. That may or may not be the case depending on the website. You make 1,000 automated requests against LinkedIn.com, they will suspend your account. I know. Yeah, ask me how I know. It doesn't take 1,000. It's more like 200. And first time that happened to me, I was like, maybe my account will come back tomorrow. Oh no. You got your account suspended? Write us an email and tell us why we should unsuspend your account. They did. I told them it was an academic study. It was crawling, and they said, cut it out. We'll set your account up again, but quit crawling. Okay. All right. So that's the background. We're okay with this? I really am going to show you how to break the law. Hopefully how to avoid breaking the law, but just realize these tools take you into a legal realm that you probably hadn't thought of before. Okay, so we've downloaded some file, automateye.xlsm. Let's open it up. The whole idea here then is that if we think about the web query wizard, where we started, the web query wizard is a great tool. It has two major deficiencies. One is the only data that you can see is the data that's visible on the page. What other data might you be interested in? Let me go back to walmart.com. I might be interested in what's behind, what link, information that's in this link. But if I look at this link, if I hover over this link, I can see down here, there's information in the link. Facet equals, pickup and delivery, all this stuff is part of the HTML that got sent to the browser by the server, but it's not visible on the page. The web query wizard is limited to text you see on the page. The second major deficiency of the web query wizard is that you've got to give it a URL that you can go straight to. You can't say, hey, web query wizard, log in, and then go here, and then give me the data. And so that's what we're going to overcome, and we're going to do it by automating Internet Explorer. We are going to tell VBA, we're going to have VBA say, all right, Internet Explorer, open up a copy of Internet Explorer. We'll have VBA tell Internet Explorer where to go. We'll tell it to find the username field, put in a username, tell it to find the password field, put in a password, tell it to find the button, click on the button, wait for that page to load, and then go somewhere that we can download the data. Okay? That's the overall idea. And let's go ahead and do it. So, I am going to view my project Explorer. All right, so the first module we have here is called Mod IE Tools. These are some procedures that I have written to make working with Internet Explorer a little bit easier. Back in the olden days, I used to write this with the class. This would be what we're doing for writing these procedures. And I realized that just takes too long. So I'm going to go over these procedures with you as we come to need them, and we'll talk through them, but we're not going to write them in class. So we're going to go over these as we come along, but let's start with Module 1. First thing to realize, go ahead, sir.
Quick question, do we need Internet Explorer? Do we have Edge or...
Oh, okay, do you have to have Internet Explorer? How many of you are saying, I'd really much rather work with Chrome, or Firefox, anything but Internet Explorer? Truth is, you can automate any browser that exposes its core functionality to the component object model. So the folks who've written the browser have said, oh, you know what? Someone might want to automate this with COM, component object model. Let's just make the objects that will let them do that. I'm going to list for you the browsers that allow it. Number 1, Internet Explorer. That's it. It's the only one. So yeah, it's got to be Internet Explorer. Chances are you have Internet Explorer. You may not have ever used it before, but it's probably there.
I'll find out.
Yeah.
But Microsoft Edge and Internet
Microsoft
Explorer.
Edge is the new Edge. And to date, it has not exposed its core functionality to the component object model. I expect that it will, but it hasn't done it yet. I was surprised when it came out that it didn't. I think it will, but not yet. Okay, so we're going to come to Module 1. First thing is to realize that just like connecting onto a database, we had to put a reference to the objects that we're going to use. Same thing here. So we're going to start. I've already made the reference here, but this is just to remember, if you start a new workbook and you copy this code over, you've got to add this reference. So I'm just going to show it to you real quick. Tools, references. It's right here, already checked for you. Microsoft Internet Controls. So that's the collection, it's the library that we have to have a reference to be able to create these objects. Now, what do you think? Is Internet Explorer a program that uses a lot of memory or a little bit of memory? It's a memory hog. Yeah, it uses a lot of memory. So let's look at this first line. I've got a module level variable, dim IE as Internet Explorer. When this line is processed, does it allocate a lot of memory or a little bit of memory? Just a teeny tiny bit. All this is, it's an object reference. I'm creating an object that will allow me to keep track of where an Internet Explorer object is in memory. This is just a reference to an Internet Explorer object. Just like we've done object variables before, it's just enough to keep track of where that thing is. We still have to create the object somewhere. Okay, so the first thing I want to do is here in this login procedure. So the one thing I know is that you all have an account at byu.edu. And so we're going to work with that. So let's see how we would create a new instance of Internet Explorer. Set IE equal to new Internet Explorer. That will create a new instance of Internet Explorer. Let me prove it to you. Open up my Task Manager, Processes. There's no Internet Explorer object open right here and all this stuff. Now it's Chrome. No Internet Explorer. I'm going to run this, put a breakpoint on end, so I'm going to run this. And now I should have an Internet Explorer here somewhere. Is it Microsoft Internet Explorer? Internet Explorer, here it is. So here's Internet Explorer. Yeah. But where is it? If I Alt-Tab to try to find, I got all kinds of things open here. We've got our database slideshow open. But it's not here. Why not? The answer is that when I open a new application, by default, these applications open invisible. That's good news. You might want your program to work with Internet Explorer, but never show it to the user. Your user might trust you less if they realize you're using Internet Explorer. And so you might want to hide it. So first thing to realize, I can do all this stuff that we're about to do without ever showing the Internet Explorer object to the user. But while we're working with it, we better be able to see it. Fortunately, now that my object variable is bound onto that object, I've got access to properties and methods. ie.visible equals true. So I'm going to make it visible. I'll just drag my insertion point or my active statement indicator back to that line, run that again, and now it just makes it visible. It was already open. I just made it visible. You have never seen Internet Explorer look so naked. Here it is. It's not trying, there's no home page. It's not trying to go anywhere. It's just blank. It's actually kind of nice. At least on my computer, when it goes to its home page, it's like some MSN home page. So it's got some sleazy story about celebrities and something about sports. And I get caught up. 10 minutes later, I'm going, oh, what did I come here to look for? Now I know that something's happening with Jessica Simpson. I don't know. Okay. So, all right, so we've got it open. We've got to tell it to go somewhere. Easy. ie.navigate. Now, there's two navigates. There's navigate and navigate to. Truth is, I don't really know the difference. But apparently, the first one wasn't good enough. So they made another one and called it navigate to. It must be better. I'm going to use it. I think navigate would work just fine. I'm going to use navigate to. And I'm going to give it a URL. Well, I'm going to give it a URL, just the URL that we have up here in the little comment. So this will take us to the login page of, for logging in at BYU. Typically, when you get this page, you're on your way somewhere else, and it popped up and said, hey, I'll log in first. And when you log in, it takes you there. This is just a login page. When we successfully log in, it will say, hey, you logged in successfully. So I'm going to execute that page. Now, for this, we've got a little test, something going on. Put these side by side, and I am going to run this line. I want you to watch and tell me which one happens first. Does the page get loaded first, or does my active statement indicator hit the breakpoint first? And I have to watch both sides. Ready? Mark, get set, go. That was kind of easy. Which one happened first? Yeah, we hit the breakpoint first. That's important. We'll talk about that in a minute. There's a question.
So I got a message of security message. Should I use the recommended settings?
This is the first time you've ever used Internet Explorer, apparently. Accept all the defaults.
Okay.
I don't know anything else. Hopefully that will work. That's what I do. It seems to work. All right. So here's what we have to realize. Is that all this statement does, this navigate to statement, it sends the instruction to the browser. Go to this URL, and as soon as it has sent that instruction, it goes, hey, I'm done, and I'm moving on. Problem is, we need to pause until that page is loaded. What's the next step here? The next step is find where we type in our net ID. If we immediately say find the net ID field, what's going to happen? Ain't no net ID field, there's nothing here. And it's going to go, yeah, it's not there, error. So we've got to tell it, whoa, VBA, slow down. And that's the first procedure that I've written for you over here in this other module. It's called wait for. We pass it a reference to the Internet Explorer object that we're working with. So you could have 3 or 4 different copies of Internet Explorer open, all going to different web pages and kind of be managing those together. And so it's not just enough to tell it to wait. We've got to tell it which one we want to wait for. So we're going to have to pass it the object we want it to wait for. This then goes into a loop. And the first thing it does is it says, wait for 1 second. Application.wait says we're just going to stop right here until we get to a specified time. What time are we saying? Current time for the system clock plus 1 second. Wait, this says wait for 1 second. Ignore attach IE for just a moment. Then we do events, just in case we've done something that puts ourselves into an endless loop. And then we look at the Internet Explorer object. Internet Explorer object has a property called busy. If it's doing something, it's going, yeah, I'm busy. Busy is true. I'm busy. I'm busy right now. This property is true. It has another one called ready state. Ready state has like four or five different values. I think it's 1, 2, 3, and 4. It's loading a page. It's waiting for the response. It's rendering the page. Or it's done. And that's what 4 is. I'm done. Question?
Just interested in the loop until statement.
Loop until. Yeah?
I've seen that before.
Oh, you probably expect to see it up here. Yeah, works the same way.
Okay. It just hits after you're done moving through it.
Yeah, the difference here is that if I put the condition at the end, it never checks the condition until it's gone through the loop once. All right. If it is busy, so if busy is true, then not busy will be false, and anything else is going to be false, and so we'll stay in the loop. So it's until this whole condition is true. So until it's not busy, until the ready state is equal to 4, then it will come out. Okay, let me explain to you what attach IE does. Question?
Why do you have the both of them, not just?
Yeah, isn't one enough? You would think that one of these is enough. And in many of the examples you see online, perhaps even in our book, they'll give you just one or the other of these. It has been my experience that it will actually kind of flash to a ready state of 4 momentarily and then go away. I've just had better luck with both of them. Question?
Yeah, why are you waiting 1 second? If it's just going to go loop until it's not busy, why do you have this wait term in there?
Yeah, why wait 1 second at all?
Yeah.
I'm not sure I have a really good reason for it.
Okay.
Part of this is I really don't want to be hitting page after page after page after page. You're right, we might be able to speed this up. But
It just does the iteration less frequently.
it does the iteration less frequently. Yeah. How many times could it iterate in a second? Thousands? Maybe? I don't know. Yeah, it could be a bunch. And I'm just telling them, look, I don't want to be checking it. You know what, just slow down a second. Give it a second. Give me a second. Literally, a second. And then let's check it. Okay. Boom, boom. Here's a problem. Depending on the security settings in Internet Explorer, sometimes when you follow a link or go to a different, click on the submit button, what actually happens in the background is that Internet Explorer will launch a new instance of itself. And it will use that new instance to serve the request. So if you're looking at the browser, it still looks as if it's the same instance of Internet Explorer, but it has now put it in a new instance. It really has just said, you know what? We now have 2 copies of Internet Explorer open. Of those 2, if it creates a new instance, which one is our variable bound onto? It's bound onto the old one. And so if Internet Explorer decides, based on the security settings and based on the nature of the page you're going to, oh, you know what? For safety, I better open this up in a new copy of Internet Explorer. It won't matter how long you're looking at your IE, you're never going to see the new data because it's looking at the old version of Internet Explorer, the old copy. And so what attach IE does is it says, just look at it right here, it's very simple. It says, listen, let's just get the collection of all of the Explorer objects. Now this is not just Internet Explorer, it's Internet Explorer and it's Windows Explorer. It's this too. So there's these 2 kinds of programs in this collection. And it says, just give me a collection of all of them. And then set IE equal to the most recently opened one, the last one. So if, when I followed that link, it spawned a new copy of Internet Explorer, this will now force IE onto that new copy. We could get away from this by setting our security settings on Internet Explorer. But the next time you sent this program somewhere else, you'd have to do those settings on that computer too for it to work. So instead, I wrote code that gets around that, and that's what attach does. Attach will also let us do something else neat. I'll show you later in class. So this is a quirky thing that your Internet Explorer object might become disconnected from the page that's serving the request you just made. And attach just says connect me back onto that. If another one's popped open, attach me onto that. Okay? All right. So now we're just going to use this, wait for IE. And then after we have said navigate to this page, we're going to say wait for and give it a reference to the Explorer object that we want to wait for. So now, let me just go ahead and this back up. Let me send this somewhere else so you can see it happen, Google. We'll run this again. I'm going to navigate and wait for load. Now you'll see that the page will be completely loaded before we get to the end cell. Question in the back.
So in the attach sub, we have just -1. Is that the case? Could happen to have 2 opening and then that would not work. Why just -1?
Okay, so the minus what's happening here is Explorers is the collection of all the Internet Explorer windows. All the Explorer windows. Which one do I want? I want the most recently opened one. So if there are 17 of them, I want number 16 because they start at number 0. This collection starts at 0. And so what I'm saying is, out of this whole collection, the one that was most recently opened.
That is the one that you just opened.
It's the one that just opened. Okay. Now our next task is going to be, we got to find this net ID thing here. Now folks, here's something that if you have some experience with working with HTML, you're immediately going to say, well, let me just view the source of this page and go look at it. There's a problem with that. If I just use view source, right click and choose view source, it's going to bring up all the source, but what it is that is the HTML that the server sent to the browser. That's not necessarily the HTML the way it's currently displayed. Back in the mid-90s, it would have been exactly the same. But in the late 90s, we got active content. I could send an HTML page, and it could have JavaScript built into it. And after it gets there, it could tell the browser, yeah, I know I said it's supposed to look like this, but now, browser, you changed it to look some different way. And if I do view source, I'm seeing the original HTML, not necessarily the way the HTML is currently rendered. And I desperately need to look at the way the page currently is. And so instead of saying view source, I'm going to choose inspect element. I'm going to right click what I'm looking for. Here's the little text box I want. I'm going to right click and choose inspect element. And that's going to take me to the source the way the page is currently rendered, and it's going to highlight that element. I mean, it's easier anyway because it takes me right to the location. And so now if I look at this, what I see is that this is an input tag. It's got a name, username, and it's got an ID, net ID. What I would like to do is I would like to refer directly to this tag, and here's how I do it. I say IE dot, now IE is a reference to the whole application. Right? It's got menus, it's got functionality, it can print. I can tell it to print this. I don't want printing anything. I want to look at the document that's actually rendered right now in the browser. The property that gets me that is called document. IE.document. Document then has a collection called all. The all collection is a collection of all the tags on the page. Let's just scroll up and see what the very top tag is on this page. This comment will be ignored. The top tag is right here. It's the HTML tag. So the very number one item in this collection is this HTML tag. It starts here, HTML, and it ends down here, /HTML. And so the very first tag actually contains everything. Let's just take a look at it. Let me come here, I'm going to take this to my immediate window, and say I want to print .all number 0. It's a 0-based collection. And I want to print the outer HTML. So this gets me to the object that is that tag, and I want the outer HTML. There it is. That is the whole page in that number 0 tag. Now, if I look at the number 2, the next tag is the heading. You see it here? It is, it's probably way over here. Here it is, head. It's going to ignore the comments. The next one is head. And so, if I was to ask for the number 2, or the number 1 tag, the second tag, number 1, it'll be just the head tag with everything it contains. This is the number 2 tag right here. So if I ask just for the number 2 tag, it's going to give me back just that tag. You see what I'm saying? This collection has every single tag. And some of them multiple times because they're contained inside of other tags. Like collections in a VBA, if it has a name, or an ID, I can go directly to it. I don't have to worry about the number. Well, let's take a look at this tag we're after. It has a name username. It has an ID, net ID. In the world of HTML, if I've got on my page a tag with an ID, that is supposed to be unique. No two tags with the same ID. If I have a tag with a name, HTML is fine, saying, you know what, you got 4 or 5 tags with the same name, no problem. And so since I'm really trying to find exactly the one, if it has an ID, that's my preference. So here's what I'm going to do. I am going to say IE.documentAll, in parentheses, in quotes, the name or the ID of that tag. Net ID. Was it just net ID? Yeah, it's just net ID, all lowercase. This will give me a reference to that object. I'll ask for the outer HTML. There it is. That is the tag. And so this gets me to that tag. Now I don't want to modify the HTML. What I want to do is I just want to change the value property. So I'll set the value equal to my net ID. All right. Where is my? Good heavens! Where's my? I want to close this and get back to my whole browser. How do I close this window? Anyone know how to close this? What's that? If you're saying something, you need to say a little bit louder. I got to get back to my page. Who said that? You get a gold star for the day. Thank you. Okay, so now, what's that?
I have like 2 claps up there.
Only 2 claps?
Only 2 claps. So 2 different people.
Okay, so watch what happens. Here I've got the statement. It says, listen, look at my Internet Explorer object. Look at the document, all the ones, specifically the one with the ID of net ID, change the value. When I run this line, we should see gallen2 pop into net ID. There we go. That little moment right there is enough to let you go, wow, we can really do this. We can now control what's going on here. If we were to do the same inspection, we would find out that the ID for the next one is password. It's just spelled out, P-A-A-S-S-W-R-D. And so I'll enter in my password. And when I execute that line, it will put in my password. Now, all I have to do is click the sign in button. There's actually 2 ways that I could go after this sign in button. Hit F12 to look at the source here. And this is just the way that the HTTP specification works. If I'm going to collect information from the user on a web page and then send it off to a server, all the information I want to bundle together with that request has to be inside a form. It's an HTML form. It's not a user form. That's a totally different thing. An HTML form. So if I look at this input and just kind of look up the hierarchy, I should eventually see a form. Here it is. And so one thing that I could do is I could say, find the form that contains the data and just submit this form. This form should know where to send itself. If we look up here, yeah, it has an action property. This form says, hey, when I get submitted, I'm going to go to byu.edu/cache/login. That's the script, the endpoint that I'm going to connect onto, and I'm going to send it all the information that's in this form. That script then takes that and does whatever it does to authenticate the user and decides whether you should be logged in or not. If you pass the check, you get logged in. Otherwise, you don't get logged in. And then it will display the proper HTML. Okay? So one way to submit data is to find the form and get a reference to that form and tell that form to submit itself. It's got a method called submit. We just call it submit method. Well, nice thing here is that this form has an ID. So we can go directly to it. So I'm just going to copy this line. Well, what was the ID? The ID for this form was credentials. And so the object is called, it's put the ID here. CRDEN, credentials. Now I'm not going to change the value property, I'm just going to call the submit method. Now, it turns out that this login page is really sensitive. And it has probably already been open too long. It's going to be stale. It's going, you know what, you opened this thing like 5 minutes ago. I'm not letting you log in with it. You're going to have to log in with something else. The reason is that BYU is going, you might have typed in your username and your password, and before you hit sign in, you might have went to get a cheeseburger. And then someone else walks up to your computer and goes, oh, look, they've typed in their username and password. I'm going to hit submit, and then I'll be able to have access. So it's actually, it knows when it sent this page out, and when it comes back in, it goes, it's been out for too long, it'll just refresh the page. So instead, I'm going to drag all the way back up to where I'm setting my thing equal to true, or to the next one where I'm navigating, and I'm going to run it from there. So it should now navigate to this page, give me a fresh copy of my login page, put in my username and password, and submit. Now, of course, this is not my real password, and so it will fail, but I will get the message that says, hey, you didn't log in. You'll see that I actually articulated it. So I'll go ahead and run that. Got to the page, put the information in, submitted, tried to authenticate me, and says invalid netid/password. Now, if you put your real netid in there, it should have logged in. Did anyone actually get logged in? Yeah, the back row is okay. You guys, there's people right behind you. They could have been looking to see what your password is. Okay, so
They're smarter.
what's that? You're hoping they'll do your homework for you? Yeah, you can have my password as long as you do my homework too. Okay. So now, did you notice anything about the breakpoint? Did you notice anything about the breakpoint here? About my current state navigator? Let's watch it again. I'm already stopped here. Am I logged in yet? So what do I have to add right here? Another wait for load. Just tell it to wait before the code runs away from it. So that's it, folks. That's all there is to it. Find the control, tell it to put in the values, tell it to form. Oh, I want to show you the other way to submit. Now, it turns out that, again, if we were in the late 90s, this would be it. It would be all you needed to know. But more sophisticated web pages have come along. And we don't necessarily always have a form that knows how to submit itself. Can you see it? What developers could do is they could say, listen, we've got a form up here that's just here to collect stuff from the user. It doesn't know how to submit. If you submit the form, it doesn't even know where to go. When you hit the submit button, what it actually does is it takes all the values the user's typed in, checks to make sure they're valid, and puts them into another form, a hidden form, and then uses JavaScript to submit that form. Or it could make a separate request even without a form at all, and just use JavaScript to make the request. In this case, we can't just find the form and submit it. What we have to do is tell the browser, someone clicked on that button, just as if you clicked on it. And so let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to comment out our submit here. That's one way to submit. Now let's look at the other way. The other way would be I got to find this button and then click submit. So I'll right click, choose inspect element, and maybe go a little bit larger here. Okay, so here it is. It's an input tag. There's a class, a type, a value. That's my tag. Does it have a name? No name. Does it have an ID? No ID. We've got to reference this thing through the collection of all the tags. But we can't go after it by its ID or its name. There's another way I can get to elements in a collection. I don't have to use a name. What can I use? If I've got a collection of worksheets, I can go after that worksheet by its name of the worksheet, or by what? Its order. Yeah, a number. It's the same thing here. This is probably tag number, 30. Let's just take a look and see what tag number 30 is. Tag number 30, input, this is my username. So maybe it's 37. Ah, there it is. Hidden, no, it's not 37. 36. Another hidden one. 35. This is going to take a while. 34. 38. I don't know. Oh, there it is. It's number 38. So I could refer to it by number 38. The trouble is, I'm not sure that it's going to be number 38 the next time this page comes. Right? Because something else could, but in fact, I was expecting it to be 37, but probably the reason it's 38 is because I've got another tag that's showing this. If I'm just looking at a normal page, I think it's number 37. But with this, it's added another one in here, number 38. So this number could change. So it's really not safe to say just use the number, because you're really saying the 38th tag. You're going at it blind. Fortunately, I've given you a function for this. Let's take a look. There's a function here called getTagNumber. We'll go over this one really quickly. You can look at it in detail if you like sometime. So getTagNumber is a function. It returns you a number, an integer. It says, look, give me an Internet Explorer object to work on. Give me the tag name, like input, div, body, whatever. And then it says, tell me something unique about this tag compared to all the rest of the input tags. What this loop's going to do is it's going to loop through all the tags on the sheet, and it's going to say, is it an input tag? No. Is it an input tag? No. Is it an input tag? Ah, it's an input tag. Like it says right here. We're making a loop that's going to start wherever we told it to start. That's one of the parameters where to start from. To the end of all the tags. And we're going to say, listen, is the tag name of the tag we're looking at equal to the tag name that was passed in? If so, let's check to see if the outer HTML of that tag contains the identifying text, which we specify here. If so, we found the tag. Return the tag number. Otherwise, keep looping. If you get to the whole loop without ever finding it, we'll exit the function. Then we'll return a tag number of -1, which tells us we didn't find it. So we specify this. Let's go ahead and declare a variable, dim tag no as a long integer. Tag no equals get tag number. Get tag number. I'm going to tell it the Explorer to work with, my IE object. The tag name, what kind of tag is it? Here's the one we're after. It's an input tag, so I'll pass it input. Now I have to give it some text string from this whole tag that's going to be unique compared to all the rest of my input tags. Class equals submit would probably do it. Tab index equals 4 would probably do it. Let's go ahead and use that. Now, what's the problem with what I just did? I got quotes inside my quotes. What do I have to do? Just like SQL, I got to double them up. So that one is inside. This one is inside. This one is the close of my string. So I'm saying, listen, look at the document that's currently loaded in the Internet Explorer object. Scan through all the documents, and when you find it, or scan through all the tags, and when you find a tag that says input, check to see if it contains tab index 4, and if that's it, that should be the one we're at. Go ahead.
Are those single quotes or those double quotes?
I have only double quotes in here. So this is just VBA string identifier. Double quotes.
Sorry, how did we know that we're looking for tab index 4? How did you decide?
Okay, so the question is, how do we know we're looking for tab index 4? The way I got there was I inspected my button, and I can see it highlights the tag that is that button. And now I can look at all my other inputs that are here, and I got to find something about this one that's different than the rest. Tab index 4 would work. I mean, the tab index is the order you're tabbing it to. So I like tab index because chances are I'm not going to have 2 tab index number 4s. So that's probably going to be it. It might be that I guessed wrong, and it'll activate a different tag and it won't work, but we'll see that this works this way. Again, this string just has to be something that makes it unique compared to the rest of the tags. Or really, unique from that tag all the way up, because it's going to find the first one. and go, aha, that's it. So if I run that, it should give me a tag number. It is number 38. But instead of just hard coding the 38, I said, go find the tag that has these characteristics. Ah, that's number 38. Now I can use that tag number. Instead of using a string to identify the element I want, tag no, and I want to click. Then I want to wait for load, or wait for IE. They used to name this function wait for load IE, but wait for IE just sounds better. So now I'm going to take myself all the way through the process again, all the way up to where I make the thing visible. And show my form. Display, cancel. It's all right. Hit F5 on the wrong one. Hit F5 here. Should now find the button, click it, wait for it to load, and then move on. So this is the other approach.
Where does tag no? Did you declare that earlier?
Yep, it's right here. Declared here. Tag no is just a variable. It's a long integer.
Yeah, sorry.
Tag number function returns the ordinal position of the tag I'm after inside the all collection. And then I'm using that to identify the tag that I want. So that's the second approach. And with these two approaches, I've never come across a form that I couldn't submit by either submitting the form or clicking the button. Doesn't mean they're not out there. Maybe something else we have to figure out. Questions?
I have a question.
Yeah.
So when I clicked in and it says submit, it just says successful login, but it doesn't like take me to my actual classes or anything like that.
Yes. Once you've got it, so the question is, hey, it just says successful login. What do I want? What do I care about that? Once you're logged in, you've got a cookie put into your browser that says, aha, this guy's logged in. Now, if he goes to his classes page, he's going to go straight there without being prompted. So that would work. Or what you could do is, instead of telling it to go to the login page, you could tell it to go to your classes page. Where would it, if you're not logged in, where will it go? It'll come right here. And when you submit, it will then follow on to where you want to go. The reason it's not taking you anywhere else is we didn't tell it to take you anywhere else. Do this. Go to your be logged out, go to your classes page, and then look at the URL that you have when you're on the login. It's long because it has embedded in it the next place you want to go. Okay, so what we've seen so far is how to interact with a web server by supplying the values it's expecting, submitting a form, waiting for it to come back. We've seen how to control it to tell the server what to do, but what we haven't seen yet is how do we get the data back once we've gotten some data. And so for that, I want to go to a different example. We'll go to a more data-rich page. So let's go to our next sub-procedure here called get data. So if we take a look at the URL that I've given you here, I think this is data that we've talked about before. Here, this is data I downloaded at one point from the city of Chicago. It's all about like the food establishment inspections. So I can come in here and I just want to see, this is our pre-setup for the first month of 2016. I want to look for violations that contain rodent. I'll hit submit. And this should just bring back all the violations that deal with rodents. There's a bunch of them, kind of an alarming number. In the first month, there's like 10 pages of violations. So this is pretty good looking data. So what we'll want to do is kind of something similar here, right? We'll want to get to this page. We'll want to plug in rodent, and we'll want to submit. Now I'm going to show you one more trick, though, before we get there. What you should realize by this point, there should be something a little bit uneasy about seeing a password just typed into the code. You should say, that doesn't strike me as a really good idea. And it really isn't. So how else might we get that password from the user? One way is, instead of a message box which the user can see, or an input box, we could create a form that has a text box that has a password character set, so as they type it in, they just see stars or something. So we could collect it that way. There's even a slicker way to do it. So because we have the ability to attach on to the most recently opened Internet Explorer window, you could tell your user, open up Internet Explorer. Get yourself logged in. Let's try it. And now that you have an Internet Explorer object that's authenticated, all we want to do is, instead of opening a new Internet Explorer object, we want to bind on to that one that's already open. Well, let's look here at our new procedure. So instead of making a new instance of Internet Explorer, I'm just going to say attach IE. That's what attach IE does. It takes some Internet Explorer object variable and it binds it onto the most recently opened Internet Explorer. You don't even have to think about the password. Just tell your user, open a browser, log in, and then run this code. So now I should be able to say IE.navigate to. I will navigate to my URL here. And a breakpoint on my end sub. I should be able to run that, and it should look at Internet Explorer. It's taken that Internet Explorer and bound that same Internet Explorer onto the Colonial Bakehouse. If I go back, oh, it's expired, but it's the BYU login page where I was. So it's taken me here. All I have to do now is find what I'm searching for. Violation contains, I'll right-click that, inspect element. It's got an input, name, ID. Look, it's got an ID, violation text. That should be pretty easy. I'll just copy the line that does that up above. Violation underscore text. We're going to make that equal to rodent. I'll run that line, take a look at my browser. Doesn't like something about that. Let me just run this code again. Oh, I need to put a wait for loading here. Wait for IE. Let's try it again. We got rodent in there. So I'm ready now to submit this form. Again, I'm putting in the data that I want, submitting it, but now I'll have some data to actually bring in. Question?
Can you explain again what wait for IE is doing?
Yeah, the question is, what is wait for IE doing? Let's take a look at the code and I'll talk through it. So what wait for IE does is it says, hey, we're going to go into a loop. We're going to wait for a second each time we're in this loop. And we're going to stay in this loop until my Internet Explorer has gotten to the state where it's not busy and the ready state is 4, meaning I'm finished rendering the page. So the whole point is here we're saying we got to pause our code until the Internet Explorer is done loading the page. Because it's not until that page is there that I can write to it. All right. So now if I inspect this page, I can see that this form has an ID. I'm going to go ahead and submit the form. The ID is form search. The same line that I had up here when I submitted. Bring that down here. I'm looking for something called form. What was it? Form underscore search? Yeah, form underscore search. Wait for the IE. I'll run that. Should load here. Thinking about it. So now we should be loaded. And we've got all the data. Here it is. AHA crepe, AHA crepe. What did they have with rodent? Oh, it looks like they corrected there. That was like a re-inspection thing. Here's the real one. Something about rodents. Observed no outside garbage dumpster. They didn't have a dumpster. They're just throwing the trash in the street. Well, contract on site to view must provide outside dumpster. All right. Yes, that's part of the rodents. They figure if you don't got a dumpster, you're going to have rodents out there. Okay, so this part that we just did is just a review of what we did before, right? Getting the page open, finding the particular fields we want to work with, putting some values in there, submitting it, waiting for it. Now we've got the data. Are you ready to pull some data in? All right, let me introduce you to the next control, or the next procedure that I've written for you. It's called import page. I pass it an Internet Explorer object. Now, I give it a new sheet name. Remember, the web query wizard is really pretty good at looking at data on a page and bringing it into Excel so I can look at it. But it can't do this query. Why? I gotta type some stuff into a form and hit submit. So, once my Internet Explorer has the page, what if I took the text from the body and wrote it out to a local file on my computer and then pointed my web query wizard at the local file? No password, no need to enter data to a form, it's the result. That's exactly what import page does. Import page, you can look at the code, we won't do it here in class, but it really does that. You can see all those steps. It writes out the source, sets up, makes a new page, makes a web query, points it at that file, brings the data in, deletes the query, deletes the web page. And so I have to supply it a page name that we want to create. We're going to call this page data. By the way, if there's already a page called data, poof, it will just blow it away and create a new one. So now, just by saying import page, passing it the Internet Explorer object and a new page to write it to, it will look at the data that was on that web page and we'll just bring it in. And it's just invoking the web query wizard to do it. But it does it by making a local file to do it. The day I thought about this, the idea that that's how, you know what, we could use the web query wizard for this, it was a great day. I still remember that day. It was like, oh wow, this would be so much easier if only we could do this. And we can. So that data is all right here. And so at this point, you just go after the data the way you're used to going after it with, working through the columns, the rows. You can use find different anchors in the data, and then go and pull the data in. So that is kind of a handy way to get there. But it may be that you need data that's not brought in by the web query. Or you might say, you know what, that's a lot of hassle. It might actually be easier just to go work with the HTML. So let's see how we might do that. So we'll import the page, but now let's take a look at what we would have to do to just bring this data in directly. So let's suppose I want to start by just listing the names of the institutions that have an inspection dealing with rodents. Where rodent is somewhere found in the review. I call it review. It's called a violation, where rodent occurs in the violation. Okay, so I'm going to inspect this. This is the data I'm after, AHA crate. I'm going to inspect this and choose, well, right-click and choose Inspect Element. Well, here it is. Yikes, this is pretty limited. It is a level 3 heading, H3. If I look at the next one, it's also an H3. The tag is really lame. There's probably nothing unique about that tag. How am I going to get after it? So what I'm going to do here is we're going to set up a loop that will just go through and find all of the H3 headers. So let's see what it would take to do that.
Quick question.
Yes, go ahead.
Would it also work if you just found the element right before that and added one to it?
Ah, yes. could we just find this? Once we have this number, if we know that's the next tag, once we get that tag number, we can add one onto it and know it's the next one. Yeah, that's exactly what sometimes you need to do. Find a different element that you can say, you know what, this is always 3 away, and then you can offset to get to the tag that you want. But let's go through, so that would work. Let's go through this approach. So let me declare tag no, T-A-G-N-O, as a long integer. All right, so let's say tag no equals get tag number. I'm going to pass it in an Explorer object. The tag name I'm after is H3, level 3 heading, H3. Now, this next argument, identifying text, is optional. You see it's in square brackets. It's optional, which means I don't have to supply it. What if I don't supply it? What does that mean? Well, it's not going to worry about identifying text. It's going to return the first H3 tag. Okay, let's start with that. Let's just go ahead and we'll start with it. Actually, let's do this. And then, which tag number do I want to start at? Let me start at 0 for now. That's going to be important to us here in just a minute. That's the default. So if I leave it off, it'll start at the 0th position. And then let me do a debug.print of ie.document .all tag number .outer HTML. Actually, outer HTML will be everything including the tags. There's an inner HTML property that says, you know what, I've got a tag that starts it and a tag that ends it. Just give me what's inside those tags, which in this case is just what I want. That property is called inner HTML. So if I run this, I expect this to be aha creep. See how well that worked? Oh, what did it give me? The 6'5" Chinese restaurant? I bet that loses something in translation. Oh, I must have clicked on the wrong one. The 6'5" is actually my first one. So I expected aha only because I was thinking of the wrong one. The first one is the 6'5" Chinese restaurant. Hey, that's how tall I am, 6'5". Maybe that's my restaurant. Okay, so now if I think about the next one that I want to get, how do I get to the next one? So tag number right now is 176. How can I tell this line to give me the next H3 tag? Instead of starting at the number 0 tag, I could start at the tag no +1 tag. So now if I run this one, actually I think the first two are 6'5". The third one is AED, A&D. So I'll run that. That should get to the second 6'5". If I run that again, it should be the next one. There's A&D live chicken poultry. So this loop right here will get them all. If I make a loop out of this. Let me just do a do and a loop. I'll get rid of this first one. And let me initialize tag number. Tag number equals 0. So now I'm going to start off at tag number equals 0. So this first one will be 1. It's going to look after tag number 1. Well, I know that tag number 1 is the HTML tag anyway, and so I don't have to really worry about accidentally skipping over that one. So tag number is going to get returned as something. We are then going to say, what is tag number going to be once it can't find another tag that meets the criteria? Tag number returns a specific number if it can't find anything. -1. So let me just do this. If tag no equals, or let's see if it's less than 0, then exit do. It's tempting just to put this condition down here on the loop until tag number is less than 0. But the problem is I'm going to find it here, It's going to come back as -1, and then I'm going to try to print it. With a -1, this will cause an error. So I've got to put the condition that gets me out between when I get the tag number and when I print the tag number. So this now should print off all of those names.
Why does it go to -1?
Question is, why does it go to -1? And the answer is, if we look at the definition of this function, which is get tag number, it's got a loop here for next loop. Once it finds a tag that meets the criteria, it returns the number we're looking for. So we're counting up and going through these. X is the function. But if it gets all the way through this function all the way through this loop without ever finding a match, then it will hit this return value here that tells it to return -1. And so it's specifically wired to say, if you don't find a match, return -1. That's how it says I couldn't find anything. And so that's why we can say, hey, if it's less than 0, you know, we could be equally comfortable saying if it's equal to -1, that's the only thing it should return if it's less than 0. Then it will do that. And you'll see that we have iterated across that data and pulled the data. You can do, this is working with it with the whole tag structure. You could just say, hey, just give me all of the body of that HTML into a string, and I could just use string manipulation. Look for mid, do the in string of where this is, find out where a particular part of that string is, and then from that point, look for the next something. So you can do all kinds of string manipulation here to get to the data that you want as well. But this shows us then kind of the two main things that we wanted to cover today. Number one, how do you plug information into a browser, hit the submit button. That's what we have here in login. And then in the bottom of our get data, two things. You can just import the data, dump it right into Excel, and then work with it. Or you can kind of use the same tag, get tag number that we've used before to track down different parts of the page and extract off just the parts that you're after. Questions here? In the back.
You're dealing with multiple pages, so like you said, this just showed us page 1. Would you go down by the submit or next page function?
Oh, right, yeah, if we look at this page, we go to the very bottom, it tells you here, currently viewing page 1 of 20. View page number 2, submit. So we could find this button, hit submit, you know, as long as there's we have to see what it's like at the very bottom here. What does it look like when we don't have it? But you'd have to have logic there to figure out when you're done getting to the next page, and then, we're done.
Over, yeah.
Go ahead and start with a different search and pull the data in. Yeah, so it looks like it goes back to page 1, or if it said 20 of 20. So you'd have to kind of look at it and see. There's a question in here? The same question. Yeah, so you have access to all the stuff here, so you can look down here at the little part that helps you navigate it. And, you know. Remember, a user has to be able to look at this page and figure out what's going on. And you have access to everything that user can see. You've just got to wire up your code to look at it and figure it out. It's more involved than figuring out by eye, but you can do it. Folks, you now have enough background to do our 6th and final project. This stuff we've covered today is what it takes to do that project. If you're still struggling on the VBA or on the database project, people tell me this one is not as hard as the database project. So that's good. Thanks for coming. Class dismissed.